The goal of the measure stage determine in what ways your I am is currently launchable and to fully develop the skills and the individual parts of the plan necessary to launch it. In terms of your I am that has recently been created, you know that your I am appears to be doable and practical. If it did not appear potentially practical, then you have not finished the defined stage. However, if your goal or your I am can be implemented tomorrow without much effort, then you are not growing much, and hence, you are not planning on achieving as much as is possible for you. To the degree that your new I am is a stretch for you to achieve and maintain, then there is uncertainty. Uncertainty means that you might need to develop skills or abilities you don't currently have before this goal is a normal reality in your life. Uncertainty might mean that you don't know exactly how the new I am will play out in your life. Uncertainty may mean different departments or different parts of the plan. By the end of the define stage or the I am stage, you might have an overall vision of how your new I am will work, but you probably don't have the details nailed down, and timelines may very well be vague and unrealistic. By the end of the define stage or the I am stage, you have a general feeling that this new I am is a possible reality in your life. However, you may need to develop skills or qualities for this new I am to truly be part of your life and to remain in your life as part of who you are. In the measure stage, you will consider the different steps necessary to launch your vision, especially the steps that are not intuitive. You will look at what skills or required components of the I am exist. Required components means things that your I am depends on. For example, to launch a company, you need money, a store, or an internet platform, marketing. If any component of your I am is missing or weak, then it is not ready to launch. You will honestly look at how much you possess each skill, and for those that are lacking, you will either develop these skills or make plans to have somebody else supply them for your vision, your I am.
Let us begin. What should the end of the define stage look like?
You should have created an I am.
I once had a professor telling me about the idea of confidence. He used the analogy of a junior high school student learning to shoot a layup in basketball. A student who is confident in themselves stands normal distance and tried to make the shoot. They are challenging themselves. Distance is far enough not to be easy. If they are not able to make the shoot often enough, they will know that they have failed, at least for the time being. A student who does not believe in themselves will stand either real close to the goal so that the shot is easy, or they will shoot from half court where the shot is impossible to make consistently. If they stand from half court and then miss, they can say, "Of course I missed. Did you see where I was shooting for?" Even if they did make it once, the feat would not be repeatable. In this way, the goal was never obtainable in the first place.
So when creating an I am, if we are serious about our goal, it should be a stretch from where we are now, but it should not be an unrealistic ambition that we don't really intend to create.
Let me tell you a story about a friend I had to illustrate. This friend had a dream to create a chain of warehouse stores which would sell merchandise really cheap. These stores would have such low margins on the merchandise that people would want to go to the stores because they would be cheaper than anybody else. This dream was at least 20 years ago, before Walmart became popular and before we knew of Costco. This friend was out of high school. If this friend had access to large amounts of money, or if this friend was visiting banks and asking for loans, then this type of dream might have been within the realm of possibility. If this friend had serious ambitions, he could have opened a 7-Eleven convenience store or something. While not exactly being the same as his dream, it would have been an attempt at a practical step. If he had been serious, he could have joined organizations or tried to make friends that would have been helpful. However, in his case, this friend of mine was not serious about trying to actually launch this idea. He wanted to feel important and like he would be very big and powerful someday. He wanted to feel like he was doing something that this world would call truly meaningful with his life. As a result, instead of making a realistic plan, he created this grand vision.
So much like the junior high school student who shoots from mid-court to avoid the responsibility of shooting a basket at a reasonable distance and missing, your friend created a vision which would be very difficult to impossible for a normal high school graduate to pull off. This way, he got the glory of the plan for a little while, and when the plan did not work, he was off the hook because he would not be expected to actually do such a thing.
Exactly. When you have defined you I am and are ready for the next stage, your goal is to protect your idea and also to start assessing whether the idea is practical and whether the needed skills exist to launch or create it. First, let's consider what each of you should expect after moving forward after the define I am stage. The purpose of considering what to expect is that knowing what to expect will make your plans more likely to succeed. When you are trying to develop an idea or to change yourself, you will go through floods and droughts. The floods are when your resources and time and energy are being drained to the max. The drought is when nobody is interested in you, nobody is coming to help you. It seems like the universe does not care, or like the universe is against you. During the floods, your time and energy is easily wasted away. It is easy to burn your fuels on things that do not help your goal, do not help your I am. During the floods, it is necessary to be aware of when time is being wasted away. It is also necessary to be aware of when your life energy is being wasted away on things and people that do not help you achieve your goals. During the drought, it is easy to settle for far less than you would deserve. During the drought, it is easy to take vows or make curses against yourself that limit you later. This often occurs during casual conversation when you complain about your situation. Every word you say actually alters your reality, and many of these words come back to you after the drought is over. So during the next stage, the measure stage, when life feels hectic and it feels like you have lots of ambition and energy, know that you are in a flood stage. This is the time of emotional prosperity. It is important that you direct your energy towards the goal. I heard of a practice. This comes from the book Grit by Angela Duckworth, Chapter 3. First, make a list of all the goals important to you. List about 20 to 30 goals. Do not include activities done only for relaxation. Include only things where you want to achieve something meaningful. Second, from this list, pick the top 5 goals and number them 1 to 5. Third, with all the other goals on your list, make a vow to do absolutely nothing at all to achieve them.
The purpose of this practice is to avoid scattering your resources during a time of flood, during prosperity. People who do truly great things tend to focus all their working energies on a few top priorities. They relax as appropriate, but when working on their goals, they focus on a few top targets.
As we enter the measure stage, the following are some principles. These principles are meant to help you focus on and achieve your goal, your I am. These principles in themselves do not create the result, but violation of any of these principles causes disaster.
So following these principles does not in itself cause your I am to manifest. You can follow all these principles and not achieve your dreams, but if any of these principles are compromised or violated, then failure becomes much more likely.
So it is important to remember these principles and make sure we are applying them as we actually do the steps, because ignoring any of these will make failure likely.
Principle 1. Consistent focus. This means to keep your focus on what you really want, even when you are forced to live a different life.
You mean like making a sticky note about what we want and keeping that stick note on our refrigerator to look at in the morning?
It could be a sticky note or just remembering what our I am is, even if life itself takes a different path for a while.
Let me tell you a story about myself to illustrate the idea. For me, after I graduated from college, I had in mind the type of job I wanted. While in school, I joined organizations devoted to being in upper management. However, in school, I was open to many different types of jobs and organizations. I was not focused on management. It was just one thing I thought about. Mostly, I was thinking about making the best grades I could on my classes. After graduation, I did not get the job in upper management. I had to take a job as a data processor just to pay the rent. Soon after getting this job, the many demands of the job as a data processor had flooded my mind. I was tired from working all day. During my time off, I spent time enjoyed myself. My money was not that great because the job did not pay that well.
So in your case, after graduating from college, you became lost. You forgot your I am.
The fact that I did not get what I wanted immediately after graduation was unfortunate. In fact, it was a terrible disability because every job from that point forward judged me according to what I had done in the recent past. If I had gotten a job as an entry-level manager, then every job from that point would have judged me on the basis as I am an entry-level manager. From that first job, I very well may have progressed to being an entry-level manager, to being a district manager, to being upper management. Because I had an inferior menial processing job out of school, I was labeled by all managers, by all leaders, and by the business community itself as being a data processor. I was working for $11 HR, doing a job that was routine data work.
That was unfortunate. Life treated you badly.
However, while the fact that I graduated college and took a menial job was unfortunate for my career path, in retrospect, that in itself was not a career killer. I was not doomed to eternally be a data processor. If I had kept my goal of being in upper management while doing my job, I could have started applying for entry-level management jobs while working on my current job as a data processor. Yes, I would have had to take days off for interviews without being able to explain what I was doing, but this would be possible. It might have meant living a double life, where I was careful who I told about my dream to be a manager. I might have needed to be careful about announcing my intentions. Announcing my intentions may or may not have been wise depending on the situation. When one job inevitably ended and I moved to another job, I could have highlighted things that I had done in my previous job, which were management-type things, and started putting this on my resume. This would have started building a management-type path within my resume. Also, while in school, I had joined organizations devoted to my preferred job. I could have continued to stay in these organizations to the extent possible. Even if it was embarrassing to be a data processor and be in a manager organization, doing so could have led to opportunities. For me personally, this was an example of a drought in my life. I was flooded with jobs that were far below what I was capable of, and I was in drought for the jobs that I really wanted. However, if I had always kept in mind what I really wanted in life, the path may very well have opened up to me. So the first principle is to keep focus on your I am. Regardless of whether you are able to tell people about it or not, regardless of whether you are able to make a straight path towards it, or whether you need to take a roundabout path with curves, still remember what your I am is. The second principle is believing that the universe is for you. Perhaps this falls under the umbrella of believing in yourself. If during the time of drought, you allow the ideas, I am worth less, or the idea of I am worth this much and not more to enter your life, these ideas can easily get lodged in your mind. Likewise, if you allow the idea, God is against me, or God wants me to suffer, to enter your mind, these ideas can easily destroy your dreams. Let me tell a story this time. I had two friends who wanted to be superstars. They wanted to be like Britney Spears. Both started making recordings and sending their recordings to record labels. Both started performing in clubs during open mic nights. Both were very serious. They each got about 25 rejections. Producers told them their voice was too high. Their music was not hip enough. They needed to sound more aggressive and more sexy. After several years of doing this, both friends were very discouraged and disappointed. One friend started thinking that perhaps it was selfish of her to use her time and money to pursue this ambition. She felt that God was not happy with her. She was also concerned that perhaps she was creating negative karma by being selfish. When some negative things happened in her life, such as her car being stolen by a drunken friend, she felt that perhaps the universe was punishing her and sending her a message that she should not be pursuing this ambition. The combination of the fatigue they were both feeling and the feeling that perhaps the universe was against her and was starting to send her messages to quit was just too much. I remember my other friend told me, she said, "In the beginning, I felt it was my destiny to be a big star. Now, I don't know whether I am destined to be a big star or not. However, I do feel that God and the universe itself would be very, very pleased if I found a way to make it. In the beginning, I exacted God and the universe to simply line me up with the right people. Now I know that I must do the work myself." Her family was putting pressure on her to contribute more, but she told me that she was helping her family and that she deserved to have some of her money for herself and for her dreams. I just remember her telling me, "God and the universe would be so very, very pleased if I found a way to make it." To date, she is not Britney Spears, but she finally became part of a band that pays her enough to continue doing what she loves.
So the second principle, use useful during the times of drought. It is useful when life seems to be going nowhere and when your energy is not as great. The principle is to always believe that God and the universe itself wants you to succeed. They may or may not put the right people in your path to help you, but they do want you to succeed.
The thing I noticed was that as time went on, my second friend became peacefully bold. She became bolder and more empowered, but in a secure, peaceful way, rather than a desperate way. I remember the last interview that both friends had with a record producer. My first friend, who started wondering if the universe was against her and if karma was building up, became almost apologetic when talking to people. She started to visibly show signs that she was not sure if she believed in what she was doing. This fear and uncertainty started to show in her voice. My second friend became harder, but in a friendly way. She became more secure and more sure that she was going to have something. When she spoke to the record producer, her voice sounded almost like it was a certainty that she would be the one chosen. She had a quality of voice that felt demanding. Her voice itself felt demanding without her being demanding. The confidence itself made others feel like they needed to listen to her. With the first friend, her lack of certainty made other people feel like they wanted to disregard her and dismiss her. Even a couple of men who were originally on her side and seemed to believe in her, I saw the questioning expressions on their face as she spoke, and I could tell that it was because of her lack of confidence as projected in her voice. The second friend simply spoke with a confidence that demanded respect. When combined with genuine friendliness, this confidence was almost infectious. The third principle is loose control, rather than tight control. This idea is also known as command but not control. The way this works is that the manifestation of most things in life are 3 steps forward, 1 step backwards. This goes along with the idea of floods and droughts. The best way to use this idea is an idea from Ray Dalio in his book, Principles for Dealing with a Changing World Order. He said, "Bet on the upside, but not so aggressively that cycles and bumps along the way knock you out of the game." This means that if you are trying to achieve something or become something, in time you will most likely be able to reach your goal. However, before reaching your goal, there will often be a delay or an unfortunate event. It is wise to bet your money that success will happen, but it is also wise to have enough of a reserve that you can survive a setback.
This is how my second friend could speak with such confidence, and yet things often did not work the way she wanted. Both friends failed that second interview with the record label. My second friend spoke with confidence, and even though people listened to her, and even though it felt as if she was stating facts about what would happen, it felt as if she was stating facts about what was going to happen, but she never actually commanded anybody to do anything. Simply felt as if she knew exactly what was happening. It was as if a movie star 5 years in the future had been sent back in time and was going through the process of auditioning. Her voice had a crisp, clear, sharp tone, as if she was stating that something very good was going to happen soon, and she was stating that this was a fact.
Yes, this type of attitude is command without control. She was commanding the situation itself, but she was not actually saying anything to control anybody. Yet she was rejected from this record deal. This is loose control. She knew that she was going to succeed in the near future. She did not know if it would happen this time or if it would happen in 2 or 3 more meetings with other record labels. But she knew that it was going to happen. In the example from Ray Dalio, she bet on her own prosperity. She bet time and emotional energy and perhaps money on her own prosperity. But she did not bet so much that she was devastated when a specific interview did not work.
Are there any more principles?
There is one more principle, and this is very, very important. It is called sometimes synchronicity and sometime judging from appearances. In one way, there is some sense in which everybody knows everything. The universe itself is in synchronicity. There are times when it feels as though everybody in the universe is moving in a type of harmony. Then there is another sense in which each person and each group of people are making superficial judgments based only on appearances. I have heard that when people hire a manager, they often go by a gut feeling. This gut feeling often comes from appearances, from the person using the right words, and from the person fitting a profile. This is true not only of choosing managers, it is true of many other things that happen in life. This fact might be sad and regrettable, but you can use this fact to your advantage. It seems like can use this to your advantage because if you are rejected, it is not that the person has dug deep into your history and sees the inside of your soul and has determined that you are not a fit for this position. Even if you are rejected many times by many different members of a group, it is not that the universe itself, in an act of synchronicity, has decided that you are not the right fit for this situation. It is more likely that the person or people making the decision have a preconceived idea of what the right person will look like, and you are not acting and speaking in a way to match their inner profile of what they are looking for. In T's case, of how a manager should speak and act. Oftentimes, a simple adjustment such as increased energy, a different, more direct way of speaking, can make the difference between being accepted or not. Let me tell a story about myself. In my life, I found that despite the fact that I had an MBA and a Master's of Accounting and a Bachelor in Mathematics, I found that every manager and every top-level person immediately acted like they had labeled me as a pile of garbage. I felt like I was either cursed or had negative karma, or like I was wearing a big sign that said, "Please think of me as garbage." Despite the fact that I had passed the CIA Certified Internal Auditor examination, I felt like I was disregarded by leadership. I was classified as the type of person who belongs in a low-level processing type of job. Perhaps the reason for this was that I spoke in a soft way and the words I used were open-ended statements which allowed others to decide to accept or not, instead of decisive statements. If you heard me speak and ignored the words I said, but only listened to the tone of my voice, it sounded like I had weak and vague ambitions, and like I was open to anything anybody else wanted to do. Because I spoke with a soft voice, managers subconsciously classified me as somebody who did not want to be in control. Other people from my class spoke faster and with a deeper voice and with more decisive words. These words applied to small things sounded more like the words a leader would use. I remember my first interview out of college. I said, "I want to get my foot in the door of the company." This is the expression my dad always used. The hiring manager immediately disregarded me as an applicant because of these words. She said, "We want somebody who will perform and do work, not somebody who wants to get their foot in the door." Of course, I wanted to perform and do work, but the phrase itself did not convey the depth of my intentions, as well as the phrase offered by other people in the class. The point is that major decisions other people made about me and my life were based on very superficial things. Things such as the lack of intensity in my voice and the picture painted by my opening words had the effect of causing managers to determine that I was not managerial material. Perfect example. In your life, very important decisions were made about you by very superficial things. So the fourth principle. Sometimes synchronicity and sometime judging from appearances. This means that large groups of people can judge others from very shallow things, such as appearances. Also, many independent members of a group who don't know each other, such as many different hiring managers, can share the same superficial, shallow preferences, such as the intensity of voice and the choice of words used during an interview. Also, the way to use this in your life is that if you are experiencing extreme failure or rejection, which is not easily explainable and does not feel right to you, then instead of first looking for cosmic complex reasons, such as negative karma or the universe being against you, instead, first take a very good look at superficial things about how you are projecting yourself, such as voice and choice of words. I'm not saying that these other things, such as karma or the universe wanting to teach you lessons, have no truth in them, but fixing these things can take years or decades. You can spend years healing your karma. By taking a very good look at how you are projecting yourself, and by asking other people to reflect on this, you can quickly change many situations to be much better than they are now. Quite often, very superficial changes in your appearance and attitude can change a situation very quickly. Let's move beyond principles and talk about the actual path to your I am.
My I am is I am a best-selling author. I have been writing a manuscript for a book for years.
Great, let's use this as an example.
I knew a man who wrote a book and went to our Starbucks and simply started talking to another man who turned out to be a world-famous publisher. The deal was signed on the spot.
Let's assume that the overall goal of writing a best-selling book is possible for you.
After all, if we assume that you are cursed, or that there are already too many best-selling authors, and that this path is not possible, then we might as well stop talking and all go home.
Right. So let's assume that there does exist some path where if you do certain things with the right attitude and intensity that this can in fact happen, you can either become a best-selling author, or at least you can make a good living from writing books. However, let's also assume that the Greek gods on empty Olympus have decided that it should be very, very difficult for you to get this goal.
Greek gods of empty Olympus?
What? Why are we assuming that the Greek gods on empty Olympus have decided that it should be very, very difficult for you to get this goal?
Obviously, we are not talking about actual spiritual forces. You gave me a story you had read on the internet where somebody reached their goal while at the same time skipping many steps along the way. Think about the steps different people have gone through to get their books published and to become best-selling authors. For example, I typed the following question into the internet. Is there a story about a well-known writer who had to undergo many difficulties and go through many steps on the path to being published? Please tell me who and describe the path. The answer I got was, one famous writer who faced many difficulties before getting published is J.K. Rowling, the author of the beloved Harry Potter book series. Rowling came from humble beginnings. She was a single mother, struggling financially while living in Edinburgh and fighting depression. She began writing the first Harry Potter book in cafes during her spare time, while her young daughter was napping. She faced many rejections from publishers when trying to get her manuscript picked up, with some saying fantasy books about wizards would never sell well. It took her over a year, going around to different publishers, before finally Bloomsbury took interest. Even once she secured a publisher, the book had modest success at first. The initial print run was only of 500 copies in the UK, 300 of which were distributed to libraries. Bloomsbury planned no further books in the series, assuming it wouldn't do well. But through positive reviews and word of mouth, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone gained traction, eventually becoming a beloved sensation passed between children and winning numerous awards.
I get it.
Think about Rowling, the author of Harry Potter. Now think about the story you told me from before where you said, I knew a man who wrote a book and went to our Starbucks and simply started talking to another man who turned out to be a world-famous publisher. The deal was signed on the spot.
The man in that story got lucky. If there is a series of steps, he was able to jump over about 5 steps in a single jump.
I'm not sure I understand. I would rather be like the man in my story than like Rowling.
We want to reach your goal as fast as possible. Let's list every possible step that you might need to take. In construction, there is what is known as the critical path. This is the longest possible path with the most number of steps that any successful person has taken. This helps us get to the goal as fast as possible.
Wait, I'm confused. How does listing the longest path help us get to the goal as fast as possible?
This is a way of understanding it. Suppose that are skipping across rocks on top of a lake. There is a lake that has multiple rocks in it. The water itself is cold and fast and dangerous to step in, so we have to step on the rocks instead. There are many of these rocks. Let's label them with letters to distinguish one rock from another rock. We label the rocks as Rock A, Rock B, Rock C, Rock D, etc. Suppose there exists a path Rock A, Rock D, Rock F, Rock J, and Rock Q. Jumping across the lake using these rocks will get us to the other side. In fact, if we want to get to the other side, we eventually need to jump across each of these rocks. Perhaps every 20 years, there is a Superman-type person who manages to simply jump across 4 of these rocks and jumps from rock A to rock Q from beginning to end. However, 5,000 people have tried to skip these steps, and all the other people who tried to skip these steps ended up getting raped or cheated out of their money by a con man. There are many people on the internet promising to allow you to skip from the start to the end in an easy path with one easy payment. Many of these are scams or worse. Also, many times that one payment becomes a series of payments. Only one person was successful in jumping all these rocks. All the others who reached the other side at some point crossed each of these 6 rocks. That one person who was successful was put all over the news and the internet. Now there exists other rocks in the lake. For example, there is Rock B, so that sometimes people take the path Rock A, Rock B, Rock D, Rock F, Rock J, and Rock Q. They still take the necessary 6 steps, but they take an added step within the path. This added step wastes time and money. In addition to Rock B, there are many more rocks that can be stepped on. There are people taking crazy paths through the lake, circling around and taking paths that lead to dead ends. The trick to this is that looking down at the lake from a raised platform, especially during the day when there is no fog, it is not too difficult to know what the best path is. However, once you get into the lake, and when there are other people involved and there is fog, then the path becomes very confusing. In this situation, the best and easiest thing to do is to climb the platform and identify the 6 critical steps. Make a list of them on paper so that you remember them during the confusion of the lake. Then go down into the lake and go from one to the next until you are at the other side. Do not seek opportunities to skip steps, and if an opportunity does arise, perhaps investigate it if you choose, but always keep in mind that this opportunity to skip a step might be a scam or con, or it simply might fall through and not work.
This makes more sense now. My steps to writing a book are: 1. Open a new file on my computer. 2. Start typing.
Now you are being silly. Think about the big steps. Focus on the ones that are not intuitive.
The ones that are not intuitive?
Try to emphasize things that will not naturally be done.
Step 1. Research how to send out a request. Step 2. Send one really professional request. Step 3. Take a break and regroup. Step 4. Send 5 requests.
Okay, now we are getting somewhere. I like that you scheduled a break. This is very important. Scheduling a vacation and scheduling a time to regroup will keep you from getting burned out. Of course, you will be taking breaks during the whole process, but this break can be a longer time when you intentionally stop working and reflect on what has been done. This reflection can prevent burnout.
Yes, and it is very important that you schedule the steps during a different time from when you are performing the steps. For me personally, I prefer to schedule my steps in a slightly different location from where I do the work to execute these steps. Remember the analogy of the lake and the person standing on the platform. Sometimes I do the scheduling in a different location, sometimes I may simply have a special time of the day or play certain music only when scheduling. The idea is that planning the schedule and executing the schedule do not get mixed together. They are two separate activities and are done in a different atmosphere. Also, I like to be in a better place physically and emotionally when making major changes to the steps.
You are very particular about this.
Doing the two things, planning steps and executing steps together at the place at the same time, tends to easily lead to confusion for me. Remember the story of the person jumping on rocks across the lake. Doing these at different times helps to create a pattern or rhythm, which brings motivation.
Listing these steps does not mean that you will necessarily be forced to take each and every one. It just means that most people who are successful are prepared to take all these steps. By being fully prepared to take all these steps, you know what to do next during times of chaos. Also, after you have covered a lot of distance, it can keep you from getting discouraged.
It keeps you from getting discouraged. How?
In your case of wanting to be a book author, suppose your path is to write letters to agents. Suppose that your goal is to send out 100 letters. In reality, creating the first offer letter might require as much work as sending 10 letters. By recording your critical steps, you can look back over what you have had to do and appreciate how much work went into that first letter. Otherwise, you could put a lot of effort into the first letter and then get discouraged that you have not made a lot more progress and decide that the whole thing is not worth it.
My I am is a relationship. I am Miss Raymond Carter. Because my I am is a relationship, do I have steps?
Are you ready to meet and be introduced to this person right now today?
Not today. There is some prep work I want to do to be more ready.
This prep work to be more ready, do you simply need to put on nice clothing, or are you trying to improve yourself in some way so that he will notice you?
I'm not sure. I have not thought of that.
What about learning flirting techniques? Are you simply going to introduce yourself and pray all goes well, or are you going to study other people's ideas for how to get his attention?
My friends have given me ideas, and I have read ideas from magazines. I have never thought about studying the subject.
So there could be a series of steps if you wanted there to be. Or you could simply have your friends introduce you tomorrow and see what happens.
I think I understand the concept of steps and the idea of critical path. What else is there to the measure stage?
There is the idea of foundation planks.
Foundation planks?
To best understand this idea, consider the goal of starting a company. If you did start a company, you would need to know where the location of your company was going to be. You would also need a way to do accounting. This would allow you to pay taxes and keep the money straight.
You would need to design the menu, and you would need cooks to cook the food.
So in the idea of foundation planks, each plank is necessary. These are like the foundations of a house. If any plank is missing or incomplete, then the entire structure falls apart.
Do we need to think about that now? For example, with me being a best-selling author, I just need a computer. Later, I will market my books in the mall, and everything will just appear as I need it.
The foundation planks may change depending on the stage you are in. The idea is that before you invest a lot of time and energy in something, you think through the required parts of it and the skills that each part will need. For example, you said that you have been writing a manuscript for years and it is almost written. You have told me that you are thinking about self-publishing. As I understand, with self-publishing, the disadvantage is marketing. How are you going to market a self-published book? Just put it on the internet and hope somebody sees it.
There are people who advertise on the internet that they will help launch a book. I have saved money for the past year, and I use my money to hire somebody.
That is a possibility. So, a skill you need that in your case you don't have is marketing. To invest in this idea is a shoot in the dark. You randomly hire somebody based on what they say about themselves, and if it does not work out, then your money is gone, and it may take you another year of work to get the money saved to try somebody else.
I guess what you are saying is a true statement about my current plan.
With foundation planks, you know that marketing your self-published book is a foundation plank. You know that it is something that will need to be done. So in phase 2 of your measure phase, you keep this in mind. You begin asking yourself if you have the skills to do this yourself, if you can develop these skills, or if you have a plan to have somebody else develop these skills for you. If there are any other needed activities that will need to happen for your dream to become real, you do the same thing. You start thinking about required skills or activities before you invest too much time and money into your dream.
The measure stage is called the measure stage because you are starting to do objective measurements. At the end of the measure stage, you will have a list of major steps. You will know the elements or the foundation planks required by each step. You will have some type of objective reference beyond your own opinion that each of these foundation elements is practical for you. You will have discussed the matter with friends and with somebody in each industry who knows what they are talking about. Please visit the website allpeopleareconnected.com for more insights and information. Subscribing will increase our marketing and will allow you to be notified when a new video is created.